Hey there. Welcome to English Eve podcast, where English meets real life. I'm Sophia, and have you ever stood in front of your friends, your heart racing so fast, and suddenly your mind just freezes? You don't know what to say in English. Well, I have, and maybe you have too. It's a feeling that many English learners face, the fear of speaking out loud. But guess what? It's totally normal. Seriously, you're not alone. Today, we're diving deep into this feeling and finding ways to overcome it. Joining me is Michael, a language coach who has helped hundreds of people turn their fear of speaking English into confidence. Michael, welcome.
Thanks, Sophia. I'm really excited to be here. That fear you mentioned is something I felt myself when I started learning English many years ago. It's almost like your brain says, no way, before you even try. But there's a way through it.
Exactly. And here's a thought. What if the problem isn't about being perfect right away? What if it's about just sharing simple ideas, even if the grammar isn't 100%?
That's a great point. People often think speaking English is like a test. You need to get it right the first time. But really, every sentence you say is a step forward, not a grade on a report card. It's about connection, not perfection.
So true. I remember my first time trying to speak English in a group. I was so nervous I could barely say a word, but I told myself, okay, just say one sentence. And that one sentence gave me a small win.
I love that. It's like building muscle. You start small, maybe saying one sentence every day. Over time, it gets easier. The fear becomes quieter, and you feel more free to express yourself.
That reminds me of a quote I love. Courage doesn't mean you don't get afraid. Courage means you don't let fear stop you. It's by Bethany Hamilton. Fear is natural, but it doesn't have to control us.
Yes. And often the fear comes from the idea of being judged or making mistakes. But mistakes are just part of learning. When I coach students, I tell them, imagine your English is like a puzzle. Each word you try is a piece, and every mistake is just you trying a new piece.
That's a nice way to think about it. Now, can we talk about some real-life challenges? Why do you think so many people freeze when it's time to speak English?
Great question. Well, it's usually because they're scared of being wrong or sounding silly. This fear is stronger when you don't have a safe space to practice. Maybe their friends laugh or the environment feels too formal. That's why I always encourage my students to do what I call the real-life test.
Real-life test? Tell me more about that.
Sure. It's simple, but powerful. Try saying just one English sentence every day. It can be to a friend or even just recording yourself on your phone. Listening to your own voice might feel strange at first, but it's a great way to improve and become comfortable with your accent and pronunciation.
That sounds doable, and I think starting small like this helps keep things from feeling overwhelming.
Absolutely. And you know what? Sometimes people feel that they need weeks or months of study before speaking. But really, it's better to start now, even if it's messy. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes progress.
I really like that. So, Michael, when was your first time speaking English in front of others, and how did it feel?
Oh, wow. That was years ago in New York. I was at a party, and everyone was chatting fast. I felt my palms sweat and my throat dry. I wanted to say something, but was too scared. Then I remembered what a friend told me. Just say hello. That's it. So I did. And after that, I tried a little more. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And it felt like breaking a barrier.
That's inspiring. For our listeners, maybe ask yourself, when was the last time you dared to speak English? What did you learn from that moment? maybe it's time for your real-life test.
Yes, and don't forget, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. Keep going and you'll see progress.
Thanks, Michael. And thank you all for listening to this start of our journey on overcoming fear. Next time, we'll talk about practical ways to train your speaking skills every day. Hey again, everyone. So last time we talked about how fear of speaking English is normal and how small steps matter. Today, let's dive into that first step. It sounds simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the hardest to do. So Michael, how do you help people start speaking English without feeling overwhelmed?
Well, Sophia, the secret is really to focus on small talks. You know, those quick, everyday conversations like, how are you? Or what's the weather like today? People underestimate how powerful these small chats are. They build confidence slowly but surely.
That's interesting. I feel like many learners want to jump straight into long conversations, which can be scary. But small talk is like the training wheels on a bike.
Exactly. And when you start with small talks, you're practicing real communication, not just memorizing grammar rules. It's like dipping your toes into the water before swimming fully. Plus, it feels less scary to say, "I'm fine, thank you," than a long explanation about your day.
I remember when I first started, I was terrified to even say hello to strangers in English. But one day, I forced myself to say, "Hi, how are you?" to a barista at a coffee shop. It felt awkward, but afterward, I felt proud.
Aha, that's a perfect example. And it's worth mentioning that making mistakes in small talks feels less costly too. If you say something wrong in a long speech, it might feel embarrassing, but in small chats, people usually just smile and move on. It's part of being human.
So, how do you suggest learners find these small talk moments? Not everyone lives in an English-speaking country or has English-speaking friends.
Great question. You can create your own opportunities. For example, join online groups or communities where people practice English together. Or use language exchange apps where you chat with native speakers. Even talking to yourself at home counts. Narrate what you're doing or describe your day out loud.
Talking to yourself. I know some people think it's strange, but honestly, it's a low-pressure way to practice. When you say, "I'm cooking dinner," or "It's a sunny day," you're training your brain and mouth to work together in English.
Yes! And here's a tip. Keep a small notebook or phone note with simple sentences you want to try. Each day, pick 1 or 2 sentences to say aloud. This keeps you focused and helps you track progress. You got it. Now, a challenge I give my students is to say one English sentence every day for 1 week. A sentence related to their real life. Like, "I went to the park today," or "I like listening to music." The goal is not perfection, but consistency.
Michael, do you think just one sentence a day is enough? Some people might say it's too little to improve.
I see your point, Sophia. But here's the thing. If someone is afraid, asking them to say more than one sentence might make them freeze or avoid trying altogether. Starting with one sentence builds habit and reduces fear. Once comfortable, they naturally want to say more.
That makes sense. So it's about pacing and not rushing. I've seen learners get stuck because they expect too much too fast.
Exactly. Progress isn't a sprint. It's a marathon. And like the saying goes, Rome wasn't built in a day. The same goes for speaking skills.
All right, so here's a practical question for our listeners. What's one simple sentence you can say in English today? Maybe start with, "My name is," or "I like coffee." What's stopping you? Thanks, Michael. That was super helpful. For everyone listening, start small. One sentence today, one tomorrow. Keep it real and keep it simple. We're building confidence, one word at a time. Hey, welcome back. So far, we've talked about how fear of speaking English is normal and how small steps like simple sentences can help. But today, let's dig a little deeper. Why exactly does this fear hold us back? What's really going on inside our minds when we freeze or stay silent? Michael, what's your take?
Well, Sophia, fear often comes from two big worries: fear of making mistakes and fear of being judged. These fears create a kind of mental barrier that stops people from speaking. It's like your brain says, if you speak, you might fail or look bad, so you stay quiet instead.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I think a lot of people worry about sounding stupid or not being perfect. But honestly, perfection is kind of an illusion, right?
Definitely, perfection is not the goal. As the writer John C. Maxwell said, fail early, fail often, but always fail forward. The key is to accept mistakes as part of learning, not as proof of failure. The problem is our brain likes safety, and avoiding risk feels safer than speaking imperfectly.
So it's natural for our brain to protect us from embarrassment, but it can also trap us. Do you think past experiences like being laughed at or corrected sharply make this fear worse?
Absolutely. Negative experiences create emotional memories that trigger fear. Imagine you tried to speak English once, and someone laughed or ignored you. Your brain remembers that pain and sends a warning. Don't try again. It's a survival instinct.
That's so true. I remember my friend Jake telling me how he stopped speaking English for months after a teacher made fun of his accent. That kind of experience can hurt more than just words.
Right, so part of overcoming fear is healing those emotional wounds. One way is to change your self-talk, the way you talk to yourself inside your head. Instead of saying, I'm bad at English, say, I'm learning and it's okay to make mistakes. It sounds simple, but this mindset shift can be powerful.
I love that. Changing inner dialogue is like reprogramming your mind. I've also heard about visualization techniques, imagining yourself speaking confidently. Does that really work?
Yes, visualization is a proven tool in psychology. When you imagine success, your brain starts building pathways to make it real. So, before speaking, try to picture yourself smiling, speaking clearly, and feeling relaxed. It reduces anxiety.
Wow, I never realized how much the mind controls our speech confidence. It's more than just knowing grammar or vocabulary.
Exactly. English learning is both a mental and emotional journey. Another helpful tip is to surround yourself with supportive people. When you're in a safe environment where mistakes are welcomed, fear fades faster.
That makes me think of a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. Facing fear with support and kindness can be transformative.
That's a beautiful quote, Sophia. Also, try to reframe fear as excitement. When your heart races before speaking, instead of thinking, I'm scared, tell yourself, I'm excited to try. It tricks your brain to focus on positive energy.
I never thought about it like that. It's like flipping the switch inside your brain. Have you seen this work with your students?
Yes, one student named Lisa told me she used to freeze every time she spoke English. After learning to reframe her fear and practicing daily, she said, I don't get butterflies anymore. Now they're cheering me on. That was a big win.
Love that story. So, to sum up, fear holds us back because of worry about mistakes and judgment, past negative experiences, and the brain's natural urge to avoid risk. But with mindset shifts, visualization, and supportive environments, we can break free.
Exactly. And remember, fear is a sign that you're pushing your comfort zone, which means you're growing. As the saying goes, growth and comfort do not coexist.
Thanks, Michael. This chapter really helps us understand the why behind our fear, the first step to overcoming it. To everyone listening, try to notice your fears today and ask, what's really behind this? Hey everyone, welcome back. So far, we've talked about why fear stops us and how to shift our mindset. But now it's time for the part many people ask about. What can I actually do every day to overcome this fear? Michael, let's dive into real-life tests or practical steps.
Sure thing, Sophia. The best way to conquer fear is to face it gradually and consistently. Think of it as exercise for your speaking muscle. You don't start by running a marathon. You start with small steps.
That makes sense. So what kind of small steps do you suggest?
Start with a simple challenge. Speak one English sentence every day. It could be telling a friend how your day was, ordering coffee in English, or recording a quick voice note. The goal is consistency, not perfection.
I like that. One sentence a day sounds doable, but what if someone feels too shy even for that?
Good question. For shy learners, recording yourself privately is a great first step. No pressure from others, just you listening and improving. Later, when you feel ready, share those recordings with friends or tutors who can give positive feedback.
I've heard about using apps or language exchange groups. Do you think those help?
Absolutely. Language exchange apps let you practice with native speakers who expect mistakes and are patient. Plus, it's motivating to see your progress with real people. But I caution not to rush into long conversations right away. Start small. One sentence, one question, one response.
Yeah, that sounds balanced. Some people jump in too fast and get overwhelmed. How about setting personal goals?
Goals are important, but keep them realistic and flexible. For example, today I will say 3 sentences in English, or this week I will record 2 voice notes. Tracking progress helps build confidence and habit.
That reminds me of a student I worked with, Emma. She was terrified of speaking English. Her first goal was just to say hello to her neighbors in English. It took a few days, but when she did it, she was so proud and kept going.
Exactly. Celebrating small wins fuels motivation. Another tip is to prepare some simple phrases or sentences in advance for common situations, like ordering food or introducing yourself. This reduces anxiety because you know what to say.
Preparation sounds like a secret weapon, but what about when people make mistakes? How should they react? I love that attitude. I remember when I first started learning Spanish, I mixed up words and made funny sentences. People laughed, but I laughed with them and kept going.
Perfect example, Sophia. And remember, success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. Keep that courage alive every day.
Before we wrap up, can you give our listeners a quick fear-busting checklist, something they can refer to daily?
Sure. Here it is. 1. Speak one English sentence a day, out loud or recorded. 2. Use simple sentences. Focus on meaning, not perfection. 3. Practice in safe environments, friends, tutors, language apps. 4. Prepare phrases for common situations. 5. Celebrate small wins. Every attempt counts. 6. Change your inner talk. I'm learning instead of I'm bad. 7. Visualize yourself speaking confidently before trying.
That's an excellent guide, Michael. For anyone feeling stuck, remember it's about small steps, kindness to yourself, and practice. Fear will fade with time.
Exactly. And to all our listeners, your English voice deserves to be heard. Don't let fear steal your story.
Thanks so much, Michael. This chapter really shows how practical daily actions can break the fear barrier. Let's keep encouraging each other. Welcome back, friends. Today, we're diving into some personal stories, real-life moments when people face their fear of speaking English and how they overcame it. Michael, do you have a story that really stands out to you?
Oh, definitely. One story I love is about a young woman named Lisa. She moved from Germany to New York and was terrified of speaking English. She told me, "Every time I tried, my heart raced and my mind went blank." But instead of giving up, she made a pact with herself. She would say hello to one stranger every day.
That's powerful. Sometimes just hello is a huge step. What happened next?
At first, she stumbled and sometimes people didn't respond as warmly as she hoped. But slowly, those hellos turned into short conversations. One day, she shared, "I talked to a barista about my favorite coffee. It was awkward, but exciting." That moment gave her confidence to try longer conversations.
I love that progression. Starting from just a greeting to full conversations. It reminds me of the saying, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." Lao Tzu.
Exactly. And there's another story about Carlos, a man from Spain who works in a tech company in London. Carlos was great with technical skills, but feared talking in meetings. His solution was to prepare a few sentences ahead, like questions or comments he could contribute easily.
So, preparation helped Carlos feel less anxious?
Yes, and over time, he became more active in meetings. He said,
Now, I actually look forward to speaking up.
"It's a big shift from fear to excitement."
That's inspiring. What about a story where humor helped? Sometimes laughter can ease tension.
Definitely. I remember Sarah, who once accidentally ordered 2 socks instead of 2 soft drinks at a cafe. She laughed at herself, and the barista joined in. Sarah told me,
That moment made me realize mistakes are funny and part of learning, not something to fear.
That's gold. When we stop fearing mistakes and start laughing with them, it changes everything.
"Right. These stories show that courage isn't about never feeling scared. It's about acting despite the fear."
Before we finish, let me ask, when was the last time you dared to speak English, Michael? What did you learn from that moment?
Great question, Sophia. Actually, last week I was at a conference in Paris. I had to introduce myself in French and English. My heart was pounding, but I said,
Hello, I'm Michael. Pleased to meet you all. It wasn't perfect, but I felt proud.
it reminded me that even experienced speakers face nerves. The key is to keep trying.
Thank you for sharing that. It's a perfect example that even the pros have moments of fear, but push through them.
Yes, and I want to leave our listeners with a quote from Nelson Mandela. "I never lose. I either win or learn. Every time you speak, you win or learn something new."
Beautifully said, Michael. That's a great note to end this chapter on. Learning, growing, and celebrating every brave word spoken. Here we are at the final chapter. So, Michael, after hearing all these stories and insights, what practical steps can our listeners take right now to overcome their fear of speaking English?
Great question, Sophia. I believe small, consistent actions make the biggest difference. First, start with the real-life test. Try saying one English sentence every day. It could be as simple as asking for the time or commenting on the weather. The key is to keep it easy and doable.
I can see how that builds confidence without overwhelming anyone. But what about those who feel stuck because they fear making mistakes?
That's very common. I tell people, mistakes are your friends. They show you where to improve. Record yourself speaking, then listen. It might feel strange, but it's a private moment to catch and correct without pressure.
I can imagine that helps you hear your progress over time. Any advice about mindset? Because fear often comes from inside.
Absolutely.
Change your mindset from I must be perfect to I want to communicate. Focus on sharing your ideas, not flawless grammar. Remember, even native speakers mess up sometimes.
That's a relief for many learners, I'm sure. What about practicing with others? How can people find safe spaces to speak English?
Look for conversation groups, language exchanges, or even online communities. Surround yourself with supportive people who understand the journey. And don't hesitate to ask friends to be patient and encouraging.
Makes sense. Let's talk about setting realistic goals. How can listeners set targets without feeling pressured?
Set small, measurable goals like, I will say 3 new sentences this week, or I will join 1 conversation group. Celebrate those wins, no matter how small. Over time, those add up to big improvements.
Before we close, I want to share a quote by Confucius that fits perfectly here. It does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you do not stop.
That's a perfect reminder. Consistency beats speed every time. And don't forget, courage grows with every step you take.
Thank you, Michael. To our listeners, start small, practice often, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Your voice matters.
And remember, the fear you feel is normal, but it won't last if you keep moving forward.
Thank you all for joining us on the English Eve podcast today. Keep practicing, keep growing, and keep speaking.